Some may say, why can't we have all? Others will say buses is a thing of the past, rail is the future. We have with us Ryan Snyder, urban planner for the past 22 years, and president of the Ryan Snyder and Associates, a new urbanist planning firm here in Los Angeles. He poses that over the past 20 years, rail too often has played a regressive role, going against transit planning logic and fostering inequity. He will discuss with us his latest report, which is titled, The Bus Riders Union Transit Model, Why a Bus-Centered System Will Best Serve U.S. Cities. Ryan.
Thank you. Okay, I first wanted to begin with the discussion of what our goals are with public transit, because this is really, when we go to fund public transit, what are we trying to achieve? And I believe the first and most important goal is to serve transit-dependent people, those who have no other means of transportation. This is really the fundamental basis of what transit should do, and we should strive to improve in that transit and make sure that everybody has a good way to get to work and to school and to take care of their daily needs. I think much of our policy in recent years has been based on sort of the next three, what I would call environmental goals, which are laudable goals, to reduce air pollution and global warming gases, to reduce energy consumption, and to provide an alternative for those avoiding congestion. Some would say we want to reduce congestion. I'm one of those who believes that for every car you take off the road with a transit or bike trip, another one comes on the road. So, but for those who don't want to get stuck in the congestion, they should have an alternative. So these three are sort of the environmental goals. And we achieve these three goals by attracting people out of their cars and onto public transit. And then we've got sort of an ancillary goal, and that is to create jobs. It's not one of the primary goals, but as we're paying for transit, we should look to see what sort of transit might provide the most jobs. And I think it's really important to look at, when we're trying to serve these transit goals, what is the most appropriate technology given the situation that we're in? Public transit should be seen as collective transportation. It means we need to collect people who are traveling the same time in the same direction along the same corridor to ride in the same vehicles. And I think we can all agree that a small town of 5,000 does not need a subway. And we can probably all agree that New York City would not be particularly well served if they just had small vans. So the question is, in the middle there, where does Los Angeles fall and what really is appropriate technology? And this I don't think we've focused on enough. In places like this picture is Seoul, Korea, they've got the density and the sort of trip patterns and the lack of parking, the right conditions, I think that make subways quite appropriate. I will argue that in Los Angeles, we don't have those same conditions. And just to take a look at the two technologies in comparing rail with bus, rail has steel wheels, fixed rail guideway, a dedicated right-of-way, pre-board fare payment, costs $70 to $90 million per mile for light rail and about $500 million per subway, whereas the bus has rubber tires instead of steel wheels, but we can dedicate lanes. Just as with rail we have a fixed guideway, we can dedicate lanes for buses and give them the right-of-way that allows them to not get stuck in the same congestion. We can give them signal prioritization so that they don't get stuck at every traffic signal. We can do free pre-board fare payment so that we don't have so much dwell time at the bus stop. And the cost to just stripe a lane, a bus lane, is really very minimal. There's paint, some bus shelters, and in some cases we're reconstructing the lane itself because the asphalt's not in good conditions. If we go to the high level of, say, the Orange Line busway, they paid about $25 million per mile, which is much less than in light rail. still much more flexible, but I even think in most cases that's even overkill. I think we need to look at sort of the more simple, practical solutions to putting more service out there. Now, I like to look at the investment that we have made and what it has done in achieving our goals. Since 1986, most transit policy in this county has been based on building a rail system. When you count the Gold Line, which just opened up this week, we spent about $11 billion in capital construction costs on rail. Of course, the red line, purple line, gold line, blue line, and green line, and we'll throw in Metrolink. What have we achieved with that $11 billion? Well, in 1986, when we began that investment, countywide on the SCRTD system, we had 497 million passengers that year. In 2008, on the same MTA system, we had 474 million passengers. Fewer than when we began the investment. If we add Metrolink in, we can bump that up to 485 million. Still, fewer passengers than what we had before. It's a 5% decrease in the MTA system, a 2% decrease if we include Metrolink in transit ridership. More importantly, population has grown since that time, so what has happened in the trips per person? In 1986, we had 58.1 annual transit trips per county resident. In 2008, with the MTA system, that dropped to 45.6. If we add in Metrolink, 46.7. So many fewer trips per resident than we had before we began that investment. The bottom line is, when we don't count the Gold Line, the Gold Line is going to make a few million a year difference, but not that much. If we exclude the Gold Line, we have spent $10 billion to build a rail system. And what have we got for it? 20% fewer transit trips per resident. Think about that. Now, I don't know about you, but when I buy something, I do it with the idea that I'll receive something and I'll be better off. If I take my clothes to the dry cleaners, I expect that they'll be cleaner when they come back and I pay for it, not dirtier. If you take your car into the shop and you spend several $1,000s to have it fixed, you expect that it will come back in better condition than when you brought it in, not worse. We have spent $10 billion and we are worse off. Now, I don't understand why this isn't seen as one of the greatest boondoggles in county history. I think it's really sort of striking. And there's all sorts of numbers we could look at, but that to me is the most alarming.